back, everyone. We've got Jeremy Frye on the right here versus Ryan Scullin on the left. And again, number one seed, Ryan Scullin. He gets to choose whether he plays or draws this round.
I love that rule.
Yeah, that rule is awesome. It's so elegant, and it makes so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, you want to reward the person who had the best Swiss finish. You don't want the Swiss to just become irrelevant the second the top 8 starts. I mean, you're talking about 15 rounds of Swiss. Additionally, it incentivizes people to play the last couple rounds instead of drawing since they're battling for seeding.
Yeah, and I think that both those things are pretty good, and it leads to what I think is more interesting storylines too when you have actual seeds that matter. Whereas when the winner of the quarters cares about which opponent wins the other quarters because they get to play or draw, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I remember in a modern GP last year, I mean, I played Willie when he would have not made top 8 if I beat him, and he was in either way because of that rule. I wanted to be the 1 seed, not the 7 seed in modern, where play first is a pretty significant advantage.
So Ryan Scullin's on the board here first with the Seeker way, and more importantly, he's played a turn 3 Rabblemaster, and Jeremy Frye does not have, it looks like a Lightning Strike to kill it, since it looks like they're digging for tokens here, which is kind of a bad sign.
Yeah. I mean, Ryan was obviously fine if he did have a Lightning Strike or Magma Jet because he would take a point of damage and he would take 2 more points of damage from the Seeker. And now he just gets to be at a huge advantage.
Yeah, because now Jeremy not only takes 3, there's 3 creatures on the board, does none. He gets to tap out now for a Savage Knuckleblade, but if Ryan has an answer to Savage Knuckleblade, this game is almost just over on turn 4.
Right. I mean, that's the power of Goblin Rabblemaster. You could easily playtest 20 games with that card and not think it's great because it dies every time you draw it. But the couple of times it lives, it can almost single-handedly win the game. And that's incredible out of a 3-mana card.
Yeah. And Rabblemaster, yeah, like you said, it's pretty vulnerable. It's a 3-cost card that has 2 toughness, dies to almost every single rule spell you can name in the format, but unchecked, it wins the game faster than any other card.
I mean, one of the biggest mistakes we made last year was probably not playing Rabblmasters in our Boros deck that we played at one of the Pro Tours, and I think that happened because in our testing, it just kept dying.
Yeah. So it looks like Jeremy decided to go with Courser of Krufix instead of Savage Knuckleblade, potentially because it offers, more incremental advantage, and it blocks the same creatures pretty much the same way.
Right. Also, in order for Courser to be effective, you kind of have to get it out early. Knuckleblade can be effective even at the very end of the game.
Yeah. Well, Chain to the Rocks is going to kind of put paid to that plan, whereas Ryan, if he's playing another Rabblemaster here, then this is just a brutalization. This is Ryan is attacking now for 5, 7, 6, what looks like 11 damage.
I'm glad you can count that high because I can't.
Hitting for 11. With his opponent have nothing in play and he has 6 creatures in play. And this is game 1 too. Post-board games you have to worry about cards like Anger of the Gods, but in game 1 that's just not a thing you have to concern yourself with.
Yeah, this is bloody. Sometimes you're just on the play with a perfect draw and your opponent doesn't have their 2-mana card. And it's not even clear that Jeremy Frye did anything wrong. You don't just auto-mulligan any hand without a 2-mana card.
Certainly not.
If he had Knuckleblade, if he had good mana, Courser, I mean, it's rough, but I don't think you can just auto-mulligan a hand like that in Standard.
Yeah, and that was a pretty quick game 1, which Rabblemaster tends to do, unopposed Rabblmasters, as both players have access to Anger of the Gods post-board here. Of course, the Mardu deck is not going to bring in Anger of the Gods against the Savage Knuckleblade Courser of Krufix deck.
Right.
Here you see deck lists presented to both players, and once again, I said this last round, but I like deck lists in the top 8. I think that it makes it even for those who have been featured on stream versus not, and at this point, you have access to this information. This prevents you from having to go out and get it.
I agree completely. In a perfect world, nobody would ever have any information at the start of a match, just what they could learn during it.
In a perfect world, they would get taught Magic at the beginning of the match, having no knowledge of it, and then have to learn from first principles. But no.
Right. I wasn't going that far with it. I was just saying in a perfect world, you wouldn't know anything about what your opponent already had or anything. You'd have to figure out. You'd have to deduce the rest of what he has from what you'd already seen and the plays he made. But in the real world, people are watching round after round. Grand Prix are exciting. Magic tournaments are exciting.
Yeah, they're awesome.
When you're done with your round, you go stand around and watch the feature matches, watch the stream, watch even just, the top tables. So that's all right. That's fine. That's fun. And by the end of the tournament, there's just so much information out there that it just makes sense to put the players on an exactly even playing field.
Yeah, I think that again, a common theme is that you don't want to penalize people for being featured, and they're not. I mean,
right.
the deck lists are presented here. And even beyond that, I mean, what if one of your friends was watching the quarters match here and you didn't, whereas your opponent didn't have someone able to do that?
They might not even have time to do it. Yeah. What if you win your quarters really quickly, you go watch your potential semifinal
That's another great point too.
Yeah, and then they finish last, and then they have to start almost right away.
Yeah, so I think having decklist solves a lot of these problems, even though, like you said, it's a little more interesting in the vacuum where nobody has decklist, but
Right.
that's just not the world we live in.
Right, that's just not practical.
I mean, you don't go into a Pro Tour top 8 not knowing your opponent's deck, and the testing the night before that some people do and others don't is part of that. But looking at these sideboards, even though Jeremy Frye got run over pretty quickly there, I don't necessarily think he boards in too much to stop an early beatdown. That's just not how the matchup plays out.
I agree completely. Ryan is not playing a beatdown deck. That was a nut draw. It was a beatdown draw, but Ryan doesn't have that many 2-drops. He's got a lot of removal. He doesn't even have that many aggressive 3-drops. Hordeling Outburst is great at going wide, but it's not that aggressive. It's just 3 power for 3 mana, not haste. That's not very aggressive. I think if you're Jeremy, you're a lot more concerned with answering Ryan's better threats like Rabble Master and Sorin and Sarkin than you are with stopping in a perfect beatdown hand or something like that.
It might be that he wants Jeremy wants something like Magma Spray. That actually might even be better than Anger in some of these situations. It doesn't answer Hordeling Outburst nearly as well. That much is clear. But killing a Rabble Master or a Secret of the Way for 1 mana is a pretty big swing.
Yeah, is there any shot Ryan just boards out Secret of the Way? It's pretty bad on the draw against green decks.
I wouldn't be surprised at all, especially, facing down Courser, Caryatid, Knuckleblade. These are all cards that interact poorly for Secret of the Way.
What do we think Ryan will do? Do we have his deck list?
Yeah, we got Ryan's deck list. He's got Hushwing Griff, but that's more for the Siege Rhino decks than it is for the Savage Knuckleblade decks.
Right.
He's got cards like Utter End and End Hostilities, which, we saw this last round where cards like Utter End and Hostilities out of Jeskai, End Hostilities, Anger of the Gods, just didn't interact all that well with cards like Savage Knuckleblade and Stubborn Denial.
How do you feel about something like Thoughtseize for his deck versus
I actually
Timur?
don't hate Thoughtseize. It's one way to get rid of Savage Knuckleblade. There are very few ways to permanently get rid of that card. And I think that the Mardu deck, if it doesn't want cards like Seeker, cards like Thoughtseize could take their place.
Yeah, it feels like the Timur deck's answers aren't the best, that it has to have kind of the right answer for the right threat. And if you can Thoughtseize them, take either the threat you can't deal with or the answer that doesn't work against what you have, you could probably gain a pretty big advantage. I don't think either of these decks are going to be truly that aggressive when playing each other. I mean, once in a while, if you have a really good draw like that and your opponent doesn't have a 2-mana removal spell, you can punish their bad draw quickly. But I don't think that's the more likely play out of these games.
Yeah, and I mean, like we said before, also, the cards in Standard are so powerful that they can run away with the game very easily. Siege Rhino, Savage Knuckleblade, Goblin Rabble Master all do this, even if the decks themselves aren't really built to maximize those draws.
Right. So I don't know. I think I like Thoughtseize. Personally, I think I would rather have Thoughtseize than Seeker of the Way out of Ryan's deck.
Yeah, I think Seeker is a card that underperforms against a deck that has a lot of green monsters. And the Temur deck really isn't aggressively attacking your life total. So I don't think that the life gain from Seeker is as important as it is in, say, the Jeskai Mirror against Mono Red.
And especially on the draw, because he's not a good blocker. He's kind of good at attacking with your mana on tap because you represent the ability to, trigger his prowess. As a blocker, he's not very effective at all. I think I might consider bringing him back in for Game 3 on the play, but I think I would almost certainly take him out for Game 2 on the draw.
Yeah, prowess cards are certainly much more effective on the play than they are on the draw because they're almost purely aggressive. So looks like Jeremy's going to kick things off with a mulligan here. But, mulligans, as unpleasant as it is to draw 6 cards instead of 7, in this format, you can recover from mulligan pretty easily. We saw one of the Jeskai decks on day 1 mulligan to 5 and win very, very easily.
Yeah, I think I remember that game.
Yeah,
he just had a good 5, and then his opponent made the sometimes mistake of tapping out first, I think,
and then he landed a Rabble Master.
Right, and then he was at an advantage, and then it kind of snowballed.
Yeah, and that's the sort of thing where a card like Savage Knuckleblade can carry a game easily enough that you don't really. It doesn't matter whether you started with 6 or 7 cards all that much. Though clearly that impacts how often you're going to have these cards on turn 3 and have a good curve and that sort of thing.
Right, that's the real scary part about mulliganing. When you mulligan and then you draw a good 6, you're not worried about the fact that you mulligan anymore. You have plenty of spells to cast, mana to cast them. But when you draw a 6-card hand, a random 6-card hand, it has a much higher chance of not playing a real game of Magic than a random 7-card hand does.
So Jeremy Frye with the first minor advantage where he scryed Ashcloud Phoenix to the top and Ryan Scullin scryed a card to the bottom. I like how much Scry there is in Standard right now. Scry is just a good effect.
I love Scry. Scry 1. They've made mistakes maybe in the past with some overpowered large Scry cards.
Yeah.
But I think Scry 1 is an excellent ability that it would be nice to see in a lot of future sets. If they made Scry 1 even a staple of Magic, so, like flying or reach, I think that the game is better for it.
Like they say, no man is a Scry land.
I don't think they say that.
It's actually a famous quote.
Famous from Hall of Famer Louis Scott Burgess.
Yeah, any quote I make is literally famous.
Must be nice to be that famous.
So both players leading with temples on turns 1 and 2, and neither of them has a 3-drop, which I think plays more towards what we thought the matchup was going to be like, in that a player is capable of having aggressive draws, but more likely just has all these good value cards.
Yeah, and they may have boarded out some of their early game stuff, knowing that their opponents, that they're both basically mid-range decks, and that the early game stuff gets blanked pretty quickly.
Yeah. This is, the sort of thing where you'd rather have cards like Butcher of the Horde, Savage Knuckleblade than you would cards like Seeker of the Way, or even like Rattleclaw Mystic. It's a fine card, but it's not the kind of card that going late really helps you.
I definitely agree. I'm not sure whether boarding out Rattleclaw Mystic is something that the Timor deck does or not, but it's certainly not a great card in this matchup. It's going to get shocked most of the time, and then in the late game, it's not a useful card.
Yeah, Ryan stole a march on Jeremy here, where he was able to play a Butcher on turn 4, and Jeremy did nothing with his mana on turn 4. That's a pretty big turn to not do anything.
That is, but if Jeremy has something like Sark in here, it's going to swing back pretty hard the other way.
Yeah. Ashcloud Phoenix, Jeremy could have played that last turn. He chose not to. I think because of Stubborn Denial, maybe trying to keep a something like Sorin off the board.
Okay, and plus he'd be playing into all Ryan's open mana where he wouldn't expect good things to really come out of it for him anyway.
Yeah, and this time Jeremy can kind of get back the turn he lost by using a Stubborn Denial, like, say, a Sarkhan this turn.
Sure.
And Ryan has to be aware of Sarkhan. Even Chain to the Rocks is something worth denying.
Yeah, I'm sure he will.
I don't think you want to sit here and just take a hit off that Butcher Lord.
This is clearly what he was trying to accomplish. Play the Phoenix with Stubborn Denial open.
Yeah, and Stubborn Denial is, like Ifro said, one of the biggest incentives to play the Temur deck is that Stubborn Denial is one of those cards. It's like Chain of the Rocks, actually. It's funny that they traded, where you can spend 1 mana and get 4 or 5 mana's worth of card out of it.
Yep. I know Kibler, who's been the champion of Timor since the Pro Tour, he upped the number of Stubborn Denials in his main deck for this tournament.
Yeah, it looks like Jeremy had 3 in his deck when he made top 8. Some of the other Temur decks that we saw playing in the later rounds had multiples in the main deck. It seems like a place to be. So Ryan's neglecting to trade Butcher for Phoenix, which makes a lot of sense because Jeremy can just trade and then untap, play a 6th land and unmorph it if he really wants to.
Right. Clearly that would be a horrible trade for him.
So here, Jeremy could play a Storm Breath Dragon, or he could Crater's Claws the Butcher. He could actually Crater's Claws the Butcher and play a Sylvan Caryatid on a land. Yeah.
It's interesting, because if the Butcher didn't have that lifelink ability, I would say I'd probably just get aggro if I were Jeremy. I'd probably just play the Storm Breath and attack for 8. The problem is that Ryan will then just hit back with the Butcher and sack a 1/1 to gain 5 life.
Deal 7 and gain 5, and
right.
that's not a great race.
So you can't really do that. So now what you're really deciding is, do I attack and then play the Storm Breath post-combat? Do I attack and Crater's Claws out the Butcher? Or do I, which of the 2 creatures do I attack with, basically? I like this line of attack with the Ashcloud Phoenix, play the Storm Breath post-combat, because it's more resilient. It can't be utter-ended or chained to the rocks.
Yeah.
And then pass a turn. I wouldn't Crater's Claws.
You are more vulnerable to Sarkhan that way.
That's true.
The longer you hold on the dragon, the better you are against Sarkhan, and Ryan hasn't hit a 5th land, so he hasn't had an opportunity to play Sarkhan. I actually don't hate this line.
No, I don't either. That's a really good point. It is much better against Sarkhan. I think it's not what I would have done, just because Crater's Claws is so powerful at ending the game. We already have Jeremy producing 7 mana, which means Crater's Claws is dealing 8 if he has Ferocious on. But you're right. My line is very vulnerable to Sarkhan.
Yeah, and Sarkhan's going to be one of the better cards in the matchup anyway. Of course, your line is better against the second Butcher, because neither Butcher can attack into the pro-white Stormbreath Dragon.
There's a lot of different cards that could fly around. I don't know that Ryan has a Sarkhan in his hand or a 5th land to be able to cast it. So I think I like that line better. But this is definitely a reasonable play by Jeremy.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a misstep in any way. It's just
a close play and trying to figure out which is going to work out better over the long run.
I do like that Ashcloud Phoenix protects from Crackling Doom. It steps in the way of Savage Knuckleblade or Stormbreath Dragon and gets sacrificed to Crackling Doom, and then, which obviously it's a good value trade for the Phoenix because it comes back.
Ashcloud Phoenix is a fantastic card in this deck. It gives it some resiliency, and it triggers Ferocious. So now Jeremy's kind of in the same spot as last turn. The race is, close to the same. He's down 2 points.
He dealt 4 and got dealt 6 in return. He drew what looks like a Pelucranos, and Pelucranos is not a super relevant play to the board. It's a fine card. You're going to want to play it eventually because it can hunt down goblins, but it doesn't interact with Butcher.
So if he went ahead and used the Critter's Claw last turn, preserving the Storm Breath for the Sarkhan, now that he drew a Pelucranos, this would seem like a pretty clear turn to just play Pelucranos, right?
It seems like it is. And if he's attacking with the Phoenix, well, that doesn't actually mean it, because Storm Breath, even though it has haste, because it blocks Butcher so well, it's very reasonable to just play Storm Breath to block.
Actually, when he attacked with the Phoenix, that made me think he was going to play the Storm Breath because he's not trading 4 for 5.
Yeah.
But I don't think this is what I would have done this turn either. I think I think I like just play the Polukranos and pass, not attack at all. Now that he's already used the Critter's Claws, you're not really looking to burn out Ryan. You're trying to be more of the overpower them controlling deck, I think, and then win with your Polukranos and Stormbreath Dragon that can go monstrous.
Yeah. Critter's Claw is such a dangerous card in this deck. I mean, imagine if Jeremy just draws another one. He can attack and send a Critter's Claws for 8 at Ryan's head.
Yeah, that's the reason I wanted to hold on to the first one, because Critter's Claw has the ability to deal so much damage. And one of the ways Jeremy could lose this game, even though he has some decent threats, is if he floods out. Yeah. And Critter Claws gets even better if he floods out. I could definitely see him stealing a game with Critter's Claws, out of nowhere. Your opponent's at 11, and he flooded out a little bit. He's just like, all right, I'll deal you 11 now.
Ryan's got a wealth of options here. He's got Wingmate Rock, he's got Sarkhan, he's got Crackling Doom, he's got Butcher of the Horde. It looks like he might be setting up a Lightning Strike on the Ashcloud Phoenix, followed by a Crackling Doom on the Stormbreath.
He does have a wealth of options. I don't know why this isn't just play Sarkhan, kill Stormbreath.
If you play Sarkhan and kill Stormbreath, you can attack for 5 lifelink with Butcher. That seems pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I want to just play Sarkhan. I want to kill Stormbreath. I want to attack with all 3 guys. I sack the 1/1 that gets blocked by the Carotid to the Butcher. I gain 5 and deal 6.
Yeah.
I don't care if my Sarkhan gets killed after that. I've still got a 1/1 in play to give my next Butcher haste, my next Butcher of the Horde haste next turn. Still got the Lightning Strike. Jeremy's down to 7 already.
Looks like Ryan is going to drop a Wingmate Rock here. It appears that's what he's preparing to do. The biggest issue I have with that line, even though it sets up a really good turn next turn, is that you die to Crater's Claws, like I said before. You just get attacked for 4 with the Stormbreath and then Crater's Claw for 8.
Yeah.
And that's a risk I don't think you need to take, because your hand is so good that you're ahead in most normal games.
No, definitely not. I mean, you just don't need this. I mean, it doesn't even look like he's doing that. I'm not really sure what he's doing.
If he's leading with Lightning Strike, I assume it's followed by a Crackling Doom.
Right.
But that does mean that the Butcher could have actually gotten an attack, and I think that's what maybe that Grimace was.
Right.
Realizing that most of his lines of play lead to wanting to attack with Butcher of the Horde.
Right. I'm not really sure what he's doing. It looks like he's going back to his Wingmate Rock. But I really like just Sarkening the Stormbreath here.
Oh, he is going to Sarkhan the Stormbreath, but he chose not to attack with Butcher. Problem is, you don't really want to block the Ashcloud Phoenix there. I guess that protects Sarkhan, but you can also...
Who cares about Sarkhan?
Well, Jeremy can also just flip up Ashcloud Phoenix,
yeah,
which then kills Sarkhan anyway.
Right. And, I mean, there are games where you want to protect Sarkhan. This just isn't one of them. Ryan has a handful of action. If... he almost wants to make that attack I wanted and then let the Ashcloud Phoenix kill the Sarkhan just so it's not there to block one of the 2 Butchers next turn.
So I think if Jeremy attacks with the Ashcloud Phoenix, if he attacks Sarkhan with the Ashcloud Phoenix, Ryan doesn't want to block. It's actually kind of interesting. If you're Ryan and you get attacked by Ashcloud Phoenix here, then you have to block because of Crater Claws.
Right. I have too much resources. I'm not going to lose the game to Crater Claws, especially when he just fired off that first Crater Claws so willy-nilly. It makes me think he's more likely to have a second one in his hand.
Yeah, so I think actually Jeremy has he has a pretty good edge here, even though he knows he doesn't have Crater's Claws. He could make this attack at Ryan and kind of make Ryan think about Crater's Claws, play around it, block Butcher. Then you can flip up the Phoenix, kill the Sarkhan, end up in reasonable shape.
Now, for the record, we know Jeremy didn't have Crater Claws before this turn, but did we see what he drew this turn?
I didn't see if he actually drew Crater's Claws, but it does not look like it. He has Stubborn Denial and Polukranos, I believe.
Okay.
So...
Well, then, yeah, I agree with you completely. He's not winning this game playing defense. I know it's hard to make a bluff that if it doesn't work, you kind of lose the game. But if I were him, I would have drawn my card, waited, the appropriate 5 to 10 seconds to make it not look too obvious, and then just attacked with Ashcloud Phoenix.
Yeah, but that's a tough play to make. I don't blame him for not doing it. Like you said, he is making a bluff attack there that if he doesn't get blocked, if Ryan just ignores it, then he is going to lose the game. Now it's still going to be tough to win this game.
Right. I mean, now he doesn't lose outright. He'll almost certainly get another on tap step, but I cannot really fathom Jeremy winning this game.
Yeah, I think even though he does have the Stubborn Denial for the Crackling Doom.
That's true. He did draw Stubborn Denial. If he drew a land, the bluff makes a lot more sense. But drawing the Stubborn Denial does make him feel like maybe he can beat a little more. Yeah. Because I guess I'm somewhat biased because I know Ryan's hand here.
Yeah, you know Ryan's hand is insane.
Yeah.
Because he has 4 good spells, which is not something you can necessarily put your opponent on. So Sarkhan can only go one direction.
Right. So now, I mean, do you say Lightning Strike the Ashcloud Phoenix? Hit him for 9?
I do like gaining life off of the Butcher, so I wouldn't mind attacking with that. The thing is, if you Lightning Strike Ashcloud Phoenix and attack for 9, Jeremy can't really flip Ashcloud Phoenix, or he just dies.
Right.
Well, that's not true. No, because you have a second lightning strike in hand, it is true. You know that.
Yeah.
So I actually like hitting for 9 here.
That's the play I wanted to make this turn. I would probably have attacked Lightning Strike, Dash Cloud Phoenix, and then attacked with the Butcher and the Sarkin, sacked one of the tokens to the Butcher to
Ryan just really doesn't want to trade the Butcher for anything. Like, see, he doesn't want to Lightning Strike Ash Cloud Phoenix. Basically, he doesn't want to trade cards with Ash Cloud Phoenix right now.
Well,
I think that's his
trade,
incentive.
Right, I don't want to trade Butcher for Ash Cloud Phoenix, but I don't mind trading a Lightning Strike for deal 5, gain 5, or something like that.
I think we're putting a little more value on the Butcher than Ryan appears to be. He just, I don't think, is as worried about his life total, which may be fair. I mean, at this point, Jeremy has no cards in hand, so you don't have to play on Critter's Claws super hard. Like, it would be nice to not die to it, but it's not a guarantee.
Yeah, but just how great is deal 5, gain 5?
Deal 5, gain 5, I mean, is a good ability.
Turning these 1/1s into 5-point drain lives is something that I'm willing to, trade off a card to do.
Yeah. So it looks like Pelucranos might be activated at some point here. So if Ryan pays 5 mana to Pelucranos, eats the 2 goblins, goes up to a 7/7, he can then attack with the Ash Cloud Phoenix and the Pelucranos and threaten to deal 11. I guess he plays the land now, so now he's just going to activate Pelucranos for 3. So that makes it so Ryan has to block Pelucranos or Ash Cloud Phoenix, except that he has Lightning Strike. So he can Lightning Strike away the Ash Cloud Phoenix. So Ryan's got a couple different paths to victory here.
Yeah.
All he has to, because now that Jeremy has no cards in hand, all he has to do is survive this turn, and Lightning Strike plus a Butcher hit or Sarkin plus a Butcher hit both win the game.
Yeah, I mean, even though I don't love how conservatively Ryan's played this game, he was in a pretty comfortable position regardless.
Yeah, and I think, he played from a position of strength. I don't think he necessarily wanted to. So that's a 3 on the Pelucranos. He just paid 7. I don't think he necessarily wanted to play quite that conservatively, but I think it's going to end up. He very easily beat what Jeremy had this game. It turns out Ryan just had enough of a trump here. So Ryan's play now can pretty easily just be take 8 from Pelucranos, Lightning Strike, Ash Cloud Phoenix, attack with the 2 flyers.
Yep.
Like a Lightning Strike does win him the game here. Or just take 8 from the Pelucranos and then attack back.
Right. Jeremy should send the Ash Cloud Phoenix, right? It just forces a block that's good for him, assuming Ryan doesn't have the strike.
Actually, it looks like Jeremy is just attacking the Sarkin, so he's doing a slightly different play.
Oh no, he's right here.
Yeah,
that's a better play. Obviously,
that actually
leaves him not dead to strike.
Yeah, it leaves him dead to second strike though.
Right, but you can't beat everything.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to beat 1 strike might be something you could conceivably do. Trying to beat 2 is not.
Yeah.
And since he does have an 8/8 bigger than the Butcher plus the Ash Cloud Phoenix,
yeah.
I like this play.
Yeah, no, that was a good play.